Denny Hamlin consistently reminds us that age really is just a number. He wins his second career All-Star race, and going back to 2024, he has won the last 3 races at Dover Motor Speedway. Good for him, but that being said, I want to address the obvious elephant in the room, that being the All-Star race format. Welcome back to Maine Motorsports. I'm Jake, and let's go over the Dover All-Star weekend. Denny Hamlin, 45, 46 years old, something like that, wins the All-Star race in relatively dominating fashion. The only 2 other cars that kind of put up a fight were other Toyotas, such as Chase Briscoe and Tyler Reddick, who both showed speed as well in the 2 opening 70-lap segments. But Denny Hamlin ultimately had the best car, did the best job, beats Chase Briscoe to the line, wins $1 million. Not that Denny needs that money, but still. Very good job by Denny Hamlin. No complaints there. I'm a big Denny Hamlin supporter. The last 5 or 10 years, he's really grown on me, and he's one of the best figures that NASCAR has. All the stuff he's done with the lawsuit and the heartbreaking championship loss last year to losing his dad not too long ago, he's still at the top of his game, despite his age. Before I go over the actual racing, I just want to address the problem, the big issue, it being the format. What was this? Dover does not deserve to be relegated to an all-star race that relatively in the grand scheme of things does not mean anything towards the actual season as a whole. No points are on the line. It's kind of a free-for-all just for the money. It's how the all-star race has always been. But the format was just so confusing. Even I was confused a little bit, and just kind of really doesn't make any sense. So usually the all-star race, you have all the guys that are already locked in based off of, being a recent winner, a Cup Series champion, a previous All-Star race winner, all that good stuff. And usually, they don't have to race at all until the actual main event, the All-Star race. There's always an open race for all the guys that aren't locked in. If you win one of the segments, you're locked in, and then after the 3 segments are done, you have a fan vote. Simple as that, All-Star race later in the day, bam. But this time, it's kind of like you had the All-Star Open, except instead of it being the cars that were not locked in, it was every single competing car. Even the guys that were already locked into the All-Star race racing in the open races, essentially the 75-lap segments. Because they treated it as like 3 separate races. They advertised it as 350 laps, but in reality it was 75, 75, and 200. And we saw these issues right away. On lap 2 of the first 75-lap stint, there's this multi-car pileup. Ryan Preece, hard hit. He kind of came down, not really knowing he was 3 wide. And guys that were already locked in to the main event, like Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and Chase Elliott, all involved, destroyed. And what did they have to do? They had to go behind the wall and do what they could to repair their car to get back into contention when the main event came around. Like, the only thing the non-open cars that were already locked into the All-Star race were racing for was to better their starting spot for the main event, because based off your average finish in the first 2 segments is what determined where you would start in the final segment. Track position is important. And we saw so many drivers who were locked in. People paid money to see guys like Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson compete in the All-Star race, Ryan Blaney, and they all were taken out before the main event even started. And guys like Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott had so much damage, they couldn't even get the car fixed in time for the main event. And they didn't even race in the All-Star race. They were in the open race that really they didn't need to compete in. But they had to for the track position, I guess. And then all the guys who were desperate to try and get into the main event were crashing. We saw another big wreck late with Riley Herbst getting loose. He caused a massive crash. Another guy like Kyle Busch was involved in that crash who was already locked in. He had to go repair his car. It's just so weird how they did the format this year, because then once the main event came around, guys that were already locked into the main event based off of their past successes didn't even get to start in the All-Star race because they were involved in crashes during the races that the guys who were not locked in the All-Star race were fighting to try and get in the All-Star race. It was so weird. And of course, per usual, like the Clash or any All-Star race, the race to get in the main event, or the races for that matter, always seem to be more exciting and more competitive than the actual main event. We always see that with the last chance qualifiers and the clash, the racing between the cars that are trying to fight for that main event spot. But then the main event happens when everyone like, oh, I made the main event, we'll get some money out of this. The racing gets a lot more tame. It was really weird. Chastain and Keselowski, for example. This wreck with Ross Chastain, right? A guy who's already locked into the All-Star race. He gets involved in a crash. I'm not saying the crash wasn't his fault, but because of this crash and getting the damage, just trying to fight for a few extra spots to better his starting position for the main event he was already locked into, now he's not even going to be able to start it because his car is destroyed. People paid good money to see their favorite drivers compete in the All-Star. The All-Star race. The All-Star race. And then, hence, many All-Stars that were already locked in to said All-Star race didn't get to compete in said All-Star race because of guys being desperate trying to get into the All-Star race. It was just a weird, weird mess. Dover is a track that I defend a lot. And I don't think there's any issue with the track at all. I think it's one of the most unique racetracks on the schedule. The high banking, the ability to like run basically wherever, change the grooves you're running in every single lap, a lot of tire wear. It's a fun little track. And in recent years, though, it's been kind of relegated to like near obscurity. They used to have 2 dates at Dover, down to just 1. People say it's not the most exciting racetrack. Dover excels on the long runs. Once the tires get worn out, drivers start making more passes. The groove widens out. But in a race that's supposed to be short, like short, small stints, it doesn't really help Dover's case because that's not what Dover excels at. The 275 lap segments, entertainment-wise, pretty good. I mean, they got a little chaotic with the wrecks and a little bit like, not saying embarrassing, but like all-stars, right? It's the all-star race, and they're not driving like all-stars. And then the final 200 lap actual all-star event, nothing really happened. The track itself is not the issue. The Cup Series racing itself was fine. But once again, the O'Reilly Series, best series in NASCAR. Corey Day wins another race. A very nice move on Justin Allgaier, using the lap car as a pick. There's been a lot of conversation about Corey Day potentially taking over that 48 car. I think he's too young and inexperienced. That being said, the O'Reilly car is so different than the Cup Series car that it might be the best move to get that young driver in a Cup Series full-time ride as quickly as possible to get as many laps in that car as possible. Might struggle the first couple of years, but once he figures the next-gen car out, who knows what Corey Day can do. We see with Connor Zilisch. Connor Zilisch had a pretty good All-Star race, I will say. Probably one of the highlights of the All-Star race. But he's not been carrying over his O'Reilly Series success at all to the Cup Series. And then the Truck Series, I thought was relatively decent. Kyle Busch proves that like if he's given the right equipment and good setup, he could still prevail. He wins that truck race, passing Ross Chastain. Clean air is not as much of an issue in those 2 series. The track itself is great. I went to Dover one time, and I still want to go to a Dover race because the first time I went, it rained out, and I did not get to see the race because I had obligations the next day. It does not deserve to be relegated to the All-Star race. And the All-Star race as a whole has kind of lost its value over the years, unfortunately. I get that it's kind of like the chance for NASCAR to get experimental. There's no points on the line. It's supposed to be a fun little exhibition race, I get it. But they've made the format so confusing, and it was just a weird sight because even I was getting confused. I was like, what's happening? Then you saw like during the first 2 segments after the big crashes, guys that were locked into the main event were just standing in the infield like watching the race before their car got repaired. Like, that's weird. They even made an Instagram post with like Blaney and Larson like, oh, they're getting ready to get back in their cars once they were repaired. What? It was just so chaotic. It was so weird. All I'm saying is that Dover, hopefully next year, I hope it comes back next year, becomes a points day once again. I have no issue with the track. If you want to say the racing's not good in the Cup Series side of things, it's not the track's fault. The car itself still needs some work. I thought the extra horsepower helped a little bit. It definitely did for sure. I think I saw a bit more passing than usual. But it's not fun when the races to get into the main event are guaranteed to be more exciting than the actual main event, the build up to the main event, and then for the main event just to be like not as good. Let's just go over some of the top finishers of this all-star race. So yeah, Denny Hamlin wins his second career All-Star race. 3 wins in a row at Dover at this point. CC still got it. Doing a great job. Chase Briscoe, a very good momentum builder day. Led a bunch of laps, I believe, in the one of the segments, and he also ran a really good All-Star main event. These terms event and like All-Star and segments, my mind's getting fried. A surprise right here. Eric Jones finishes a solid 3rd place. I believe he was one of the cars who had to qualify his way in through the first 2 segments, and he did so. Very good for Eric Jones. Austin Dillon, too, a 4th place finish. Interesting, weird top 5, with Connor Zilic rounding out the top 5 actually as well. Zilic, his best performance in a Cup Series car that was not on a road course. So a very weird top 5 that could be a result of a lot of these like actual all-star caliber drivers like Elliott, Chastain, Blaney, and Larson not even standing a fighting chance because of being involved in wrecks that weren't their fault in the non-main event races. But Austin Cindric finishes 6th. I didn't really see him all day. William Byron, I know he was doing okay and did a pretty good starting spot, I'm pretty sure, for the main event. He finishes in 7th. Michael McDowell, 8th. Alex Bowman, another top 10 and 9th. And Brad Keselowski, who started on pole for the first segment, finishes 10th, rounding out your top 10. It's not really worth going over anybody else just because like it's the All-Star race, like no points are really on the line. Again, some other notables like Chastain and Chase Elliott didn't even get to compete in the main event. Ryan Preece had that hard crash earlier in the race. Dover deserves more justice, and I really, really hope it returns to a points-paying date. That being said, this was the last race of the season broadcasted on Fox, so I'm very happy for that because next weekend we have the Coca-Cola 600, Indy 500, Formula One race. I don't think it's going to be at Monaco this year. I'm pretty sure they changed it. It might be Canada. I forget, but I know Formula. We've got the triple header weekend per usual. I'll probably be a day or 2 late to the race review because I'll be down the shore. I'll be watching, but I won't be home till later on Monday, so I'll probably have a video up by Tuesday. But I'm excited because now we're going to go back to NASCAR on Amazon Prime for their 5-race stint. I'm very excited about that. I love Prime's broadcasting. It's so good. High quality. We'll actually see a battle from 5th place on back, and they might even show multiple battles at once. There's one thing I want to point out too with the Fox broadcast. Mike Joy literally questioned, like, is Denny Hamlin in the championship 4? Bro, they've been advertising so badly how NASCAR no longer has the elimination style format, and even Mike Joy's confused. That says something. I mean, like, that broadcast booth is just like, that's not it. I'm sorry. I can't ignore it. I just can't. That being said, though, that's basically the whole gist of Dover. I didn't feel too invested watching this race, knowing that, like, there's not really any stakes because there's no points on the line, plus the whole jumbly format that, like, had literal drivers who were going to start the main event regardless of where they finish in the first 2 segments get wiped out in wrecks, and then they didn't even get to compete in the main event. It just was so weird. Imagine like you're a diehard Chase Elliott fan seeing that, or a diehard Ross Chastain fan, or a diehard Blaney fan, coming to see your boy, your all-star caliber driver, go for $1 million and not even get a chance because some guy's racing just to get in the main event who didn't earn it until that day. I blame the format, though. The only incentive the guys already locked in had to race in those 2 segments was to better their starting position in the final segment. But we just got to simplify the format like we used to. And if we could get Charlotte back as the all-star race, I don't see that being an issue. Like, what's holding them back? It's a good track, and it makes sense. It was tradition for so many years to have the Charlotte Oval for the all-star weekend, and the very next week, Coke 600. I miss that. Plus, Charlotte, I guarantee, would put on a better show. Dover's just not meant to be an all-star racetrack. It strives when there's long runs, tires wear, and you can move around the racetrack. Short stints is not what Dover excels at. And you're probably thinking, oh, but the all-star race had a pretty long stint to end the race. And it did. But with the next-gen car, it's not all that great. So it was just Denny Hamlin up front. Briscoe kind of took the fight to him. Reddick was okay. Besides those 3, like, I don't remember where anybody else was running. Justice for Dover. That being said, though, I hope you enjoyed today's video on Dover. We go to Charlotte Motor Speedway next week. Oh, before I move on, I want to also point out on the IndyCar side of things, out of nowhere, it didn't even look like it was possible, Alex Palou wins the pole for next week's Indy 500. He picked up like 2 entire miles per hour on that final run. He's incredible, that guy, dude. Whether you think Ganassi's got something up their sleeve or not, like, you can't deny Alex Palou is awesome. I don't think it's as big of a deal, say, if it was at a road course or a street course. I think Indy, many more drivers have a legit chance to take down Alex Palou, just because of the nature of how the oval racing works in IndyCar. It's a lot more competitive, I would say, than the road course, street course side of things. But, yeah, so that is Dover. Next week, biggest day in racing. Cannot wait. I will definitely be tuning in when I'm down the shore, and I'll get the video out as soon as possible. I also want to thank you guys. We hit the 500 subscriber mark. Thank you so much. I have a special for 500 subscribers coming out. Hopefully sometime this week. I'm working on it. It's going to take a while, but I'm doing what I can to get it out. I want to rush it, though. It's going to be a fun little video. So have a great day, guys. Thank you so much for 500 subscribers. Y'all take it easy. Peace.